Let's start with Adobe Dimension. We are going to see the dashboard first. So when you start, you can see these different panels. So the first thing that you need to understand is you have different modes. This you can just come back to the main dashboard to create a new document, open. You can also find some tutorials. After you have the design mode, and this is this mode that we are going to use the most because we have all the different tools to make the creations, and we can find also a render mode. The render mode is just at the end when you finish your work. You can export with a different type of options and create the render. So if I just come back to my design mode, because this is the main mode. The first thing that you need to understand, you can click on this area, content, and here you have different content options, and if you want to extend your window, it is possible, but most of the time it is interesting to have these content options. What is a content option? Content options is the possibility to have access to models, it is the possibility to have access to materials, it is the possibility to have access to light, and it is a possibility to have access to images. So this is the different assets that we can use in Adobe Dimensions. When you go totally on the left, you have different tools. So most of the tools is more to move on your space, zoom in, zoom out, and have different options. And you don't have too many tools in Adobe Dimensions. Don't forget that each time here you can select a tool, but if you double click in some tools, you can have a list with more possibility, more options. For example, in the selection tool, I can find inside selection tool, but also move tool, also rotate tool, and also the scale tool. If I click on the magic wand tool, double click, here I just have the magic wand tool, here I just have the sample tool, but if I click, for example, on the orbit tools, I can find also tripod tools, horizon tools, and roll camera tool. So you have the tool on the left, and here this is all the starter assets by categorize. In the middle of your document, you can find your space of work in 3 dimensions. I will explain after how you can move in this space of work. By default, you have a new image with a canvas, 1024 pixels by 768 pixels. If you go totally on the right, you have the same options. By default, you have an environment and you have a camera. So thanks to that, you can set the environment. You can also edit your camera. Each time when you will add an object, like a shapes, a models inside, you will have the object appears on the same panels here. Each time when you when you add the models, you can find different actions, and you can find also a properties panels depending of what you choose. Here it's about environment, about camera, but when you add an object, you will have different properties options. Here at this level, you can manage a selection with the camera. You can also create different view, and here it is the render options. The render option. Sometimes it can be useful when you work in the design mode to see the render, even if after you go on the render mode and you will be able to create the final result. The final result is every time the best in comparison of your just design result. Now if I just come back here, so this is basic things that you can have, create new, export your work. You have the possibility to export in different 3D formats, 3D file. Here you can work with edit, object, group, ungroup. You can work with the alignment panels. You can resize your canvas. You can work with camera, work with a different view here. You have also a selection panels. Here you have view. And you can work with window if you want to use switch mode, for example, just like this, but generally we don't use this too much, and you have also a help mode. About the preferences, you have very few preferences, just need to go on edit, select preferences. First things to do is the language, why if the language was not really good for you, you can just use the user interface language and you can change here. You have also the theme. If you want to work with a light theme, it is possible. Honestly, generally in Adobe we work with a dark theme, and this is why in Adobe Dimension we will work also with a dark theme. Here it is the user interface spacing. You can find these different tools, and we have a condensed spacing. If you apply comfortable, you can have a little different render. In this course we will work just in the user interface spacing condense. You have also snapping options, snap to ground, you have a snapping tolerance. Sometimes we can edit little, but generally the snapping tolerance is good, but sometimes we can change the value for the snapping tolerance. When you create a render, reduce noise in rendering, I think it's great to keep this. At any moment you can just visit preferences, clicking here. So this is the first thing that you need to understand in Adobe Dimension. So it's not very difficult. Totally on the left you have different tools. Here you have different assets that you can add: models, materials, lights, images. We can have our 3D space. On the right, scene parameters. It is little like a layer panel, but it's not about layer, it's about a scene. And each time when we create something, when we add an object, we can have different actions and properties for this object.